Phil here, and what I want to talk today about is creating non-magical items in D&D Beyond. Can I say non-magical items? Yeah, non-magical items. And the reason I want to talk about this is because the homebrew for D&D Beyond doesn't give you the option to create non-magical items. So does that mean you're stuck? Well, with what comes in the pack? No, yes and no. So there is a small little hack you can do. I use the term hack very generously there. You're not really hacking anything, but there is a way around it, and there is a way that you can create non-magical homebrew weapons. So the first thing is, well, what's the weapon we want to create? Well, one of the things I want to introduce for the characters is one of these, something like a deringer, which is a small .22 pistol. And they came with 2 or 4 shots, and we're going to have a 2-shot one. So there are no deringers in D&D Beyond. Now, there are in some of the expanded tools, there are muskets, and there's even las rifles and stuff. So you could use on them, but it's a bit powerful. The one thing you need to do, so when you're going to creating a homebrew item, is you want to try and find some sort of a weapon that already exists that closely mirrors the attack, the hit, and the type of damage that the new weapon that you're doing does, and you'll see a reason for that. So a Derringer is quite a small, short-range pistol. So I'm thinking of something along 1d4 piercing, that sort of a way. So 1d4 piercing ranged weapon could be a dagger. Of course, the Derringer is 2 barrels, so maybe we can have multi-shot. Would be a nice little thing as opposed to just having a daggers. There is also, you could use, if you wanted something with a little bit more kick, you could use a trident. The trident is 1d6 piercing. Again, it's ranged. But what we'll do is we'll stick with the dagger as our template. So what you need to do, well, we're doing this in D&D Beyond, so obviously open up your D&D Beyond and go over to your account and hit homebrew. There's a couple of different ways into this. There is also a problem with the homebrew. There is a well talked about bug on the internet. So we'll talk about that at the end, or we might even move it on to a separate video if this goes on too long as it is. Okay, so we're into homebrew, and you can see there's 2 tabs, my homebrew collection and my homebrew creation. So when you create a homebrew creation, you can make it available to your characters, and that's a collection. So if you're making it available to your characters, well, then it goes into the collections. And if you're not making it available and you're just still working on it, well, you can keep it in your homebrew creations. So we're going to go in there, and and we're not going to go in there because we're starting from scratch. This is if you wanted to find one of your existing ones. Okay, so you can see here it gives the options for what you want to create in homebrew. There's backgrounds, feats, magical items, monsters, races, spells, and subclasses. So where is normal weapons? Where are the normal weapons in this? Well, how do we create normal homebrew weapons? Well, currently speaking, I don't know if this is going to change, and it said if it is going to change, it's going to take a long time to propagate down to the free accounts. There is no way of creating non-magical items. So think, well, this is going to be a very short video. Well, no, there is a way of doing it. There's a way around it. So let's have a look at this magic items, and we can create few homebrew magic items, create homebrew magic items. So we're going to create a homebrew magic item, even though this isn't going to be a magic item. So we go in here, and we have 2 options. We can create it from an existing one, and this will list all the existing magic items that are in the D&D world. Of course, there is nothing like the Derringer. The dagger isn't a magic item, so we're not going to be using this template. But if you go to create from scratch, it opens up a new interface. And there are some mandatory fields that you have to fill in, and they're the ones with the little red asterisks. So we are going to give it a name. So we call it Derringer 22. Because there was Derringers, they made them, I think it was a 0.3, 22 was this standard one. Now this version is very handy for later on. So this is if you come to edit it, which one you're actually working on, and to see whether the changes you have made have propagated down. So this is version 1. Rarity. Well, depends on how rare, and this obviously will depend on your game setting. If the characters are bringing it forward from a different time period, like it's a time traveling one, well then that could be quite rare, uncommon. It could be rare, or it could be legendary. So what we'll say is it's uncommon. Now here's the one. Here's the pay dirt. This is where I said you need to have an idea of what you want to base it on. So this is the base item type. So it's going to be a weapon, and this will change these ones here. So some of them have grayed out, and it's going to, what's the base weapon? And in this case we said we were going to pick a dagger. So there's a dagger. So this is listing all the non-magical weapons. Now you can see here blunderbuss, bad news, and all these things. These are all in the DM's manual. So it's quite good though. Even though I haven't bought the DM's manual for this, I still have access to these items. So anyway, we want the dagger. So we're going to pick the dagger. So that's our base weapon. And we can put in a bit of information, and we can take this from, if you like, your Wikipedia page. So where was the one about the 2 2s? Okay, so we'll just put in this. We'll just take this bit of information. It's just really a bit of flavor text. Oh, bit of flavor text to populate it with. So we can pop that in there. And which is actually the links, and you can actually leave them and we'll see that they come across. And we can put a bit more information here. Let's put a header in here. So we'll change our text to a header, and we'll say arranged. This is a ranged weapon. And if you want to, arranged. Right, this is arranged. This is a ranged weapon, and we can put in what we're going to, if there's any modification on it. And if you wanted to have a bit more information on it, let's say you could throw it and it has a knife in the back, or say, let's say there is a small little blade that pops out of the handle. So we say that in melee. We will for just development melee. However, it has a short blade that can be ejected from the grip and used. Okay, so the little blade pops out and you can stabby. So it's not a magical item, but we create magical item, and you can go back in and change these. So modifiers. Well, what would be there's additional information that you can put in here. It's not really going to affect these ones. This is more for like if you've got attunement and stuff. Modifiers. Well, yeah, we do have a modifier, because what we're going to say is it can actually be when you use the blade that we've just created hidden in the butt or the handle. So we add a modifier. And what's the modifier type? Well, it's going to do damage. And what type of damage is it going to do? Well, it's probably going to do slashing. It's a little knife. What's based on? Well, we'll say it's a dexter. It's a dexterous. So you slash, you pop it out and you slash it. So it's based on the player's dexterity. And we'll say, what will we give it? It's a little sharp knife that sticks out. Probably be something light, wouldn't it? Well, yeah, we'll go with 1d4. And you can add in an extra bit. Can this be used as a bonus action? So could you fire and shoot? You could think like that. This could be. Anyway, we won't have it anything fancy like that. Now let's go back up to our main information here and go. This is a ranged weapon. Both 2 of the 4 barrels may, we'll say it doesn't have to be, but may get rid of the maybe fired at the same time after all barrels are fired. A bonus action can be bonus action or a standard action may be used to reload it. Oh, and we put this on. If the pistol fails to hit, uh, 1d6 must be rolled on a, let's say 1 or 2, on a 1, on a nat 1. The weapon jams and can only be reused after a rest. Okay, so short or long rest. So we'll put that in. So we'll change that in there. We'll save that change there. We'll just check our modifiers. It says there's one. We'll just have a quick look at this. Yeah, that's fine. Now, just hit save change. Now, here's the thing. The changes will get pushed fairly straight away to their server. We'll just have a look at the character sheet first. So I'm going to go into one of our characters. Now, I only have one that's available for messing around with at the moment, and so we're going to give, even though it's a dog, we're going to test giving the character to it. So we come down to the equipment, and we can go manage equipment, and we can go, we'll just see the inventory there. There's nothing in the inventory, and we just do a search here, deringer, and nearly straight away the deringer comes up, and you can add it or you can view it, and you can see it's version 1, and it says range. This is a ranged weapon, 2 or 4 barrels, blah blah blah, melee, whatever, and we can add it. And let's have a look. We'll equip, and then we go into our actions. Now, the one thing about this is, so it's a +6 hit. You'll notice there is no way to modify this, and unfortunately, so the damage it does is 1d4 +3 piercing, because the initiative here, proficiency bonus for this character here is 3, and they're obviously this type of, it's a finesse weapon, so they're actually able to use the proficiency bonus. And you can see here it's 1, there's the damage for slashing. I can't roll that, whereas I can roll that. I can't roll this one, and I can't modify the hit. So the hit and this base damage comes from the base weapon that we've chosen. When you click on the notes here, and unfortunately there is absolutely no way to modify that. And the modification we put in, the modification damage for the 1d4 slashing, was for when it's used in, so clear that there, when it's used in this melee attack. So maybe we should put in melee or something there, melee damage. So this is the melee damage here. Sorry, this is the melee damage here. This is the slashing damage here. So you can see this. If they shoot the weapon, they get 1d +3, and if they slash using this effect, the melee one, they get the 1d4. So it's back to rolling normal dice, real world dice. So this is slashing, and this is the default one, which is piercing. So you have to keep a bit of an eye on this, and it says it's range 20 to 60 feet. You could actually put in it the usual, the other caveats. And oh yeah, the link works. That's handy. I wasn't sure. I've never tried that before. So the link, I remember we copied that from Wikipedia. So the link actually works on that, which is quite interesting. So click on there and we get the notes and we get the other information. And that all looks fairly straightforward. And you can put as much or as little information in here. The pistol fails on a 1d6, you must roll a natural 1 and all that. And that doesn't sort of come up here, but you can get, there's other ways to get a bit more information in the notes and stuff. The problem with this, and that's okay, so that's a bit of a hack. You're not meant to be able to create non-magical weapons. We're using the create a magical weapon, but just not making it magical. And unfortunately, it means we can't change the underlying weapon stats that we've based it on. And there's no way of doing that. It's just not possible in D&D Beyond at the moment. That may change in the future. One of the interesting things, though, is the issue that people have found, and I found this myself, and it's quite frustrating at first because you think you're doing something wrong, is if we want to decide to go in and change this. So say we've spotted a typo here, or we want to get rid of this link, or we want to put a bit more information, or we want to make it clearer the dice rolls down here. Like if in the melee one we want to say it's 1d4, and in this range it's 1d4 plus proficiency bonus. So let's try that. So we go back. You would think that you'd be able to go back into the homebrew and go to my homebrew creations, and this will list all the ones that we've created, and the pistol should be there. There's the Derringer, and I'll just open this out, and it gives the about the weapon, and it says you can remove it from collection. So in theory, this, if I remove it from collection, it won't be available for me to populate onto a character sheet, in theory. Okay, so let's go in and we're going to edit this. So it's good practice. First of all, what we should do is we should change our version number. So we change this to 1.5, and we're going to put damage in this one. So we will go, we'll give us a, no, that's too big. We'll go maybe header 4 damage, 1d4 plus 3, and in melee, per shot. Yeah, because remember we just can fire 2 shots per shots fired. And in the melee one, we're going to do the same. We're going to come down here and we're going to go. I'm going to go damage, just 1d4, and we think that's great. We've changed the version name. We will leave this there, common derringers. Blah blah blah, additional information. There's not really much else we can change there. Obviously if I change dagger to something else, to the trident, that would affect the to hit and the basic damage. Okay, save changes, and I always like to press it again because you'll get to see why in a while. Okay, so homebrew, and if we look at my creations, and we'll see the Derringer, and we'll see it's now version 1.5, and there's our mods in there. So now we'll go back to our character sheet, and we'll view the character sheet, and we already have the gun added. So we go into here, and there's the Derringer, we click on this, and we say, oh, it's still on version 1, our changes haven't been there. And we go, oh, that's a bit odd. And then you think, well, you know what, maybe I should have to remove it. I'll remove it out of my inventory, so it's gone. I'll do a refresh. I'll go back into my equipment. I'll go manage equipment, and I'll go look for Derringer, and there comes the Derringer, and I press the info on it, and I'll see it's still version 1. It's not the newer version. And the problem is D&D Beyond doesn't push the changes down straight away. When you create it from scratch, it seems to push it down and make it available. And not only that, Chrome here seems to load them up and it caches them. And I've tried clearing the cache, and I've tried a couple of other things, and I've tried removing the device, removing the homebrew from the collection available, and to see if that changes, helps it. And it doesn't. Not only that, you can end up, I've tried creating a private window, and what else have I done? I've done all manner of different things to try and force the cache reloading. I've emptied the cache, I've cleared the cache, I've cleared it of cookies, and none of this works. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to go in through Firefox. When I've cleared the cache down, and it's going to want to do 2-factor authentication. So I'll just get my phone ready. And I go yes, so I should verify me in, so I'll be in now, and I'll go into I'll just come out of that character there, I'll just go back home and view character, and you can see it's refreshed, it's already refreshed itself, and we go in and we go manage equipment, and I will go Derringer, and I'll go, and it's still version 1 here. Now sometimes when you do this, you'll actually be version 1.5 will be available in Firefox, and then when you go across back to the Chrome, it'll still be version 1. It will, after a period of time, it will clear out, and you can do it. They say on the D&D Beyond site, it says it usually takes 15 to 20 minutes. You can sometimes tempt to force it by going into the homebrew. This doesn't always work, it sometimes works. Going into your homebrew, going into my homebrew collection. Actually, sorry, what I should do first is remove it from the character. So I just can't remember whether it's in with the character or not. And what we're going to do is then we're going to make it unavailable. So equipment, inventory. Okay, so there is nothing in the deringer. That dog doesn't have the deringer. Homebrew, my homebrew collections, and there is the deringer. We'll open it and we'll remove from the collection. Okay, and just refresh that here. You can refresh this as much as you like, but it won't make any difference because in theory now, when I go back to the character, I shouldn't even be able to see the deringer there. Yet sometimes, depending on how quickly the push works down, deringer is still available. And it's not only that, but it's still available as version 1. So let's go back into our homebrew. Let's re-enable it. So we re-enable it. Sorry. So it's in creations. If we go into collections, you won't see it. So into homebrew creations, into the deringer, and then add collection. So it's now added. Let's just do a quick a refresh there. Let's go back to our characters. View. And equipment. Oops, sorry, yeah. There's the deringer, but it's still version 1. So this can be quite frustrating. So the changes will not necessarily show up straight away. Sometimes you can be lucky in that if I sign out of this fully, sometimes it's if you've this window open. I thought for a while as if I had this one window open, it would cause the problem. But let's go back into Firefox. And let's see, we'll close down the Google window. Has it appeared? Okay. Go into our characters. And let's go into equipment, manage equipment, and do a search. There's the deringer. And still version 1. Okay, so it can be hit and miss, and this could take an hour, or it could take sometimes 5 minutes, but it is a problem. I suppose the thing to take away from it is a lot of people initially go, oh, there's something, what am I doing wrong, what am I doing wrong? My item isn't showing up. You're not doing anything wrong. You have to realize that D&D Beyond, they have separate different servers, and some of them are pushing them down to the character sheet, and the character sheet's pulling from different ones. And when you create the character sheet, when you create the homebrew item first and it's up here in the server, it pushes that straight away and makes it available for your campaign. So then your campaign, you can then link it to your character sheets. But what seems to happen is the first time it gets pushed straight away, but unless you have made significant changes or deleted or whatever, and sometimes even if you deleted it, it still becomes available. The follow-up on alterations afterwards seems to take an awful long time. So normally with one of these, you would probably create it in incremental little bits. You try this bit first, then you'd save it and you'd see if that's okay. And that's obviously the way you do most things normally. With the magical items, it's nearly as better as to fill out everything. Have it prepared, what you're going to do, fill out everything, because when you create that first initial item and you save that, that gets pushed straight away to your character sheets. The changes afterwards can really be slow. And if you have an item in a character sheet, that doesn't necessarily get updated automatically. You're going to have to remove it from your character sheets and then let it change on the server and let it change and then reattach it to your character. It's very buggy. And it is very annoying, and you think you're doing something wrong. You're not. It's just the way, and it's well documented on the D&D site. A lot of people are having these issues, and it always comes down to people saying, well, sometimes it gets pushed straight away, sometimes it's 15 minutes, sometimes it's one chap said it took him eventually it took him overnight to do it. And you can see here, it's right, it's been accepted. It's version 1.5. So with all that, let us close down, or let us leave Firefox there, and no, let's close down Firefox, go back into Google, and let's go in from here because it's definitely changed. Let's sign in. I used to think maybe it's if we're not signing in, maybe it is signing in, maybe you did this, maybe you did that, clear the cookies, don't clear the cookies. It doesn't, nothing seems to make a change. Let's go back to our characters. Chewy. And I've added them in through this tool here as well, and it makes no difference. Equipment, manage equipment. Oh. And it's still version 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this there at, and I'm going to try back later. There's no point in waiting around here for 20 minutes. You've been watching this long enough as it is. Okay, thanks for watching. Any questions? And if anybody finds a knack that guarantees to change this, either let me know, or if I find it first, I'll let you know. Thank you very much for watching.